Gil, I mean, I remember walking out and CJ, the producer of the show, he's like, Shannon, this is gonna blow up the internet. I said, but it just took off.
Yeah.
And everybody they were just shaking their head. I was like, what? They're like, Shannon, this is gonna go crazy.
Yeah.
The unraveling of Shannon Sharpe's once untouchable public image has been nothing short of a media firestorm, and the details emerging are as disquieting as they are damning. It begins with a lawsuit so explosive it has shaken the very foundation of his career. A 50 million currency unit legal battle that accuses the former football legend and celebrated television personality of abhorrent behavior. The plaintiff, operating under the alias Jane Doe, alleges that what started as a consensual relationship descended into an abusive nightmare, replete with manipulation, threats, and acts of violence that she claims left her irreparably scarred.
Shannon Sharpe says he's temporarily stepping away from ESPN in the wake of a $50 million lawsuit accusing him of rape. A woman filed suit against Sharpe on Sunday, accusing him of raping her twice.
The accusations themselves are graphic and forceful. Jane Doe paints a harrowing picture of her time with Sharpe, alleging that he became overly controlling and volatile as their relationship progressed. According to her, Sharpe demanded complete dominion over her schedule and personal choices, expecting her presence at his home at a moment's notice, on his terms, and with no regard for her autonomy. But the most shocking claims revolve around alleged incidents of physical aggression, which Jane Doe says culminated in traumatic events that she could no longer endure in silence. Her suit accuses Sharpe of ignoring her pleas for him to stop, asserting that her protests were met with hostility and contempt. It's the kind of allegation that doesn't just tarnish a reputation, it annihilates it. And then came the leaked audio, a chilling piece of evidence that has only added fuel to this already raging fire. In the recording, Sharpe is allegedly heard making remarks about choking Jane Doe. His legal team has been quick to dismiss it as nothing more than an out-of-context snippet from what they claim was a consensual, role-playing scenario. But the public reaction has been far less forgiving. Social media, the great court of public opinion, erupted into a frenzy, with hashtags calling for accountability trending within hours of the audio's release. For many, this was the smoking gun, the irrefutable proof that lent credence to Jane Doe's allegations. And while Sharpe's camp has tried to reframe the narrative, claiming the leaked tape was used as leverage in an attempted blackmail scheme, the damage to his public image has been catastrophic.
And that the was about handcuffs, choking, putting on dog collars. Do you get those at Petco?
The fallout was swift. Sharpe, who had recently ascended to new heights in his broadcasting career with a high-profile gig on ESPN's First Take, announced his decision to step away from the network, albeit temporarily. His statement was carefully crafted, asserting his innocence while framing his leave as an opportunity to focus on his family and address what he referred to as false and disruptive allegations. And ESPN, for its part, expressed support for his decision to step back, but made it clear that the network considers the matter serious. Behind the scenes, industry whispers suggest that Sharpe's departure wasn't entirely voluntary, with insiders hinting at significant pressure from executives who were acutely aware of the potential fallout for their brand. But this isn't the first time Sharpe has found himself at the center of such allegations. The revelations have prompted a wave of scrutiny into his past, unearthing a troubling pattern that many now view as impossible to ignore. In 2010, Sharpe stepped away from his role on CBS's The NFL Today under eerily similar circumstances. At the time, he faced accusations from Michele Evans, a woman who had been romantically linked to him for nearly. Evans alleged that Sharpe had subjected her to acts of intimidation and aggression, claims that included an incident where she said he forced her into unwanted physical contact. A restraining order she initially filed was later dismissed. The allegations lingered in the background, casting a shadow over his otherwise gleaming career.
Are now beginning to bring up past things that have happened with Shannon Sharpe, including a temporary restraining order that was filed against him back in 2010 from a woman that he was dealing with at the time, who accused him of sexual assault. He said in different things. Now, this was dropped. It was dismissed, that restraining order.
And then there's the matter of the incident at FS1, where Sharpe was accused of choking a female production assistant during his tenure as co-host of Undisputed. While no formal lawsuit was filed in that case, sources with direct knowledge of the situation have claimed that the network reached a private settlement with the accuser for what was described as a significant amount. Sharpe's representatives have downplayed the event, calling it a misunderstanding that arose from a playful interaction among colleagues. But the lack of transparency surrounding the settlement has only fueled speculation, with many questioning why such a large sum would be paid if the allegations were as benign as Sharpe's team would have the public believe. As these past incidents resurface, they are being pieced together into a narrative that paints a far less flattering picture of Sharpe than the one he has so carefully cultivated over the years. Public sentiment has begun to shift, with many now questioning whether his charisma and larger-than-life personality have served as a smokescreen for deeply problematic behavior. Even his staunchest supporters are finding it increasingly difficult to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the allegations now stacked against him.
Alrighty, y'all. So the Shannon Sharpe ESPN, does he still keep his job conversation is beginning to, I was going to say beginning to happen, but it's been happening, but I think now it's beginning to get louder because of different things that Attorney Busby has released, including the audios. So right now the conversation is, why is Shannon Sharpe still able to be?
Stephen A. Smith, Sharpe's colleague and friend, has publicly expressed his belief in Sharpe's innocence, describing him as a man of integrity and character. But even Smith, a seasoned media veteran, seemed to tread carefully, acknowledging that his opinion is based solely on his personal experiences with Sharpe and not on the facts of the case. It's a cautious endorsement that reflects the precarious position of those in Sharpe's orbit, caught between their loyalty to a friend and the undeniable weight of the allegations. And then there's the industry itself, which has moved with surprising speed to distance itself from Sharpe. His multi-year contract with ESPN, signed just months prior, is now under review, with insiders suggesting that any potential return to the network is contingent on the outcome of the ongoing legal battles. Meanwhile, his podcast empire, once a beacon of his post-football success, has been thrown into disarray. Sponsors have reportedly begun to pull their support, unwilling to be associated with the controversy. It's a domino effect that threatens to dismantle everything Sharpe has built since leaving the gridiron. But the most damning blow may yet come from the court of law. Jane Doe's legal team, led by high-profile attorney Tony Busby, has framed the lawsuit as a fight for justice, promising to expose what they describe as a pattern of predatory behavior. Busby, known for his aggressive tactics and high-profile cases, has already released damning audio evidence and hinted at the possibility of additional revelations. For Sharpe, the stakes couldn't be higher. A loss in court would not only devastate him financially, but also cement his fall from grace in the eyes of the public.
His attorney offered that up publicly.
To me, her turning it down shows that it's not a money grab.
No, it shows that it's a bigger shakedown.
As the legal proceedings unfold, the tension continues to build. Each new piece of evidence, each statement from Sharpe's camp, and each reaction from the public adds another layer to an already complex and deeply unsettling story. And yet, for all the noise surrounding the allegations, one can't help but feel that there's more lurking beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. The past has come back to haunt Shannon Sharpe, but the question remains, how much deeper does this go? But just when you thought it couldn't get messier, the narrative takes a sharp turn into territory so chaotic it feels almost surreal. Enter Katt Williams, the comedian whose name alone has become synonymous with controversy, unpredictability, and, apparently, a knack for blowing the lid off untouchable figures. Shannon Sharpe's reputation had already been teetering on the edge, but his high-profile interview with Williams earlier in the year added an entirely new dimension to his public unraveling. It wasn't just an interview, it was a grenade, lobbed directly into the heart of Sharpe's career, and the aftershocks are still being felt.
But a lot of the stuff he was saying, because I don't live in that world, people think because, oh, Shannon, you live in Hollywood, you must have heard, you must have been, no, bro.
The episode, which aired on Sharpe's podcast, was supposed to be a lighthearted, entertaining conversation. Instead, it quickly descended into one of the most incendiary interviews of the decade. Williams didn't hold back. He went on a verbal rampage, calling out everyone from his fellow comedians to Hollywood executives, and even throwing thinly veiled jabs at Sharpe himself. The internet exploded. Clips of the interview dominated timelines for weeks, and Sharpe, who had intended to use the moment to solidify his growing media empire, found himself at the center of an entirely new storm. What many didn't know at the time was just how meticulously planned that interview had been on Williams' end. Sources close to the comedian suggest that he came armed with a mental dossier of grievances, not only against Hollywood elites, but against Sharpe himself. Allegedly, Williams had been sitting on some of these bombshells for years, waiting for the right platform to detonate them. And Sharpe, with his reputation for stirring the pot, provided the perfect stage. It wasn't just a podcast episode, it was a calculated ambush, and the fallout was exactly what Williams had envisioned. The question is, did Sharpe see it coming? Or was he too blinded by the promise of a viral moment to realize he was walking straight into a trap?
You decide whether or not you believe him. Was it tough hearing some of the things that he was saying? Yes, because I have a personal relationship with Earthquake. I've had Steve Harvey on the show.
Williams, of course, has always been a master of weaponizing his words. He doesn't just criticize, he dismantles. And during the interview, he made it clear that he had no intention of playing nice. At one point, he dropped a cryptic comment about people who pretend to be squeaky clean on camera, but live a whole different story off it. While he didn't name names, the implication was clear enough for fans to connect the dots. Social media lit up with speculation that Williams was throwing indirect shots at Sharpe himself, hinting at behaviors or incidents that hadn't yet come to light. Whether or not there was any truth to it, the damage was done. By the time the episode wrapped, Williams had cast enough doubt to create a permanent stain on Sharpe's carefully curated image. And here's the kicker. Williams reportedly walked away from the interview, doubling down on his claims. In private conversations later leaked online, he boasted about how he had changed the game with that one appearance. Nobody's untouchable, he allegedly told a confidant, not even Shannon Sharpe. It was a bold statement, but one that seemed to resonate with many of Williams' fans, who have long viewed him as an unfiltered truth-teller in an industry full of smoke and mirrors. For Sharpe, however, those words must have felt like a dagger. He had invited Williams onto his platform to boost his own clout, only to find himself becoming the latest casualty in Williams' long-running war against Hollywood hypocrisy.
Clause, I'm taking him at his word because I wouldn't know that. Nobody has ever heard that before. I'm thinking that's truth because he's on.
What's particularly fascinating and damning is how this interview wasn't just a random detour in Sharpe's career. No, it was emblematic of a larger pattern, a calculated willingness to court controversy no matter the cost. Sharpe had already built a reputation for pushing the envelope, for leaning into provocative topics and guests to keep his name in the headlines. But this time, it seemed he had gone too far. Williams, ever the chaos agent, turned the tables, transforming what should have been a PR win for Sharpe into an unmitigated disaster. And the fallout? It's been nothing short of catastrophic. Behind the scenes, industry insiders were reportedly furious. Executives who had championed Sharpe's rise at ESPN were left scrambling to contain the fallout. Sponsors who had lined up to partner with Sharpe's podcast and other ventures began to reconsider their associations. And Sharpe himself? Sources close to the former athlete describe him as blindsided, unprepared for the backlash that followed. He had underestimated Williams, and in doing so, he had inadvertently opened Pandora's box.
We're in an interesting game.
We are.
Hey, 58 million views though.
Oh yeah.
Almost 58 million views.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing about Katt Williams, he doesn't just throw shade. He scorches everything in his path. In the interview, Williams made a point of referencing figures in Hollywood who, in his words, get away with everything because they've got friends in high places. The implication was clear. Sharpe, with his carefully curated image and A-list connections, wasn't immune to the kind of scrutiny he had invited by putting Williams on his platform. It was a masterclass in passive-aggressive takedowns, and the internet ate it up. But this wasn't just about the interview itself. No, the real damage came from what followed. Williams, perhaps sensing an opportunity to capitalize on the chaos, began dropping cryptic hints in subsequent appearances, suggesting that there was more to Sharpe's story than anyone realized. He teased receipts, alluded to behind-the-scenes behavior, and generally kept the public on edge, wondering what bombshell might drop next. It was a slow burn strategy, and it worked. By the time Sharpe announced his temporary departure from ESPN, the narrative had spiraled completely out of his control. And then there was the money. Oh, the money. Let's not forget that the infamous Williams interview reportedly became one of the most lucrative episodes in podcast history. Sharpe, who had already been raking in millions from his various media ventures, saw his earnings skyrocket in the wake of the episode's viral success. But here's the irony. The very thing that boosted his bank account may have also been the nail in his professional coffin, because while Sharpe was busy counting his earnings, the court of public opinion was turning against him. Critics accused him of exploiting controversy for profit, of prioritizing clicks and views over integrity. And honestly, it's hard to argue with that assessment.
10 million in a day. And counting, still going up.
As the weeks turned into months, the narrative surrounding Sharpe became increasingly toxic. More past incidents began to resurface, each one more damning than the last. And through it all, Williams remained a looming specter, popping up here and there to fan the flames. At one point, he even hinted at a follow-up interview, promising to reveal everything they don't want you to know. Whether or not that actually happens remains to be seen, but the mere suggestion was enough to keep the rumor mill churning. It's worth noting that Williams isn't exactly a neutral party in all of this. He has his own history of controversy, his own long list of feuds and scandals. But in this case, his unpredictability worked to his advantage. By positioning himself as a truth teller, a whistleblower of sorts, he managed to shift the focus away from his own baggage and squarely onto Sharpe. It was a masterstroke of misdirection, and it left Sharpe floundering. And then there's the question of what this all means for Sharpe's future. Can he recover? Can he rebuild? Or has the damage been done? Industry insiders are divided. Some believe he'll find a way to claw his way back, citing his undeniable talent and charisma. Others are less optimistic, arguing that the combination of legal troubles, public backlash, and professional missteps may be too much to overcome. What's clear is that Sharpe is at a crossroads, and the path he chooses next will determine whether he can salvage his career or if he'll become yet another cautionary tale in the world of celebrity culture.
Because I got Club Shay,
Right,
and I've
right.
almost got 3 million subs.
Right.
And ever since that Katt Williams, a
Yeah.
lot of mofos been treating your boy different.
What?
As for Williams, he seems to be thriving in the chaos. His career, which had been somewhat stagnant in recent years, has experienced a resurgence thanks to the fallout from the interview. He's reportedly working on new material, and there are rumors of a major new project in the works. In a strange way, the very scandal that has torpedoed Sharpe's career has revitalized Williams's. It's a cruel irony, but one that feels almost poetic in its inevitability. So where does this leave us? With more questions than answers, as always. What other secrets are waiting to be uncovered? How far will Williams go in his quest to expose the truth? And perhaps most importantly, what will Sharpe do next? One thing's for sure, this story is far from over. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and stay tuned, because if there's one thing we've learned, it's that when it comes to Shannon Sharpe and Katt Williams, the drama never stops. See you in the next one.